I'm coming at you live on tape from Sydney, Ohio. And today is Tom Hanks's first starring role in a movie. And he's brilliant at times, and his acting is laughable at times. It's Mazes and Monsters, an anti-D&D movie. D&D is Dungeons and Dragons. That started the Dungeons and Dragons is satanic. It is going to make your children worship Satan. It is going to make your children kill themselves. It is going to make your children kill you. Trend of the early 80s. Now, it was based, not really, of a real story from the 80s of a guy who played Dungeons and Dragons who went missing. Now, it wasn't because he played Dungeons and Dragons that he went missing. It was because he was depressed and trying to kill himself that he went missing. The Dungeons and Dragons was a release for his depression. Now, the author of the book, Rona Jaffe, of course, blamed Dungeons and Dragons, which later resulted in a lawsuit to Dungeons and Dragons and the anti-Dungeons and Dragons trend of the early 80s. Of course, I have played Dungeons and Dragons and multiple other games like Dungeons and Dragons, and I can assure you they are not satanic, nor do they make you want to kill themselves, nor do they make you want to kill people. I have never done any of the things my characters have done in Dungeons and Dragons except for pick up a hooker, and I have not done that as many times as my character did in Dungeons and Dragons, or else I would be very, very poor. And I mean like washing people's windows, homeless poor. Because my character liked the hookers. He also liked blackjack, and he also liked going stealthy and jumping from rooftop to rooftop. He thought he was Batman. Now, this movie starts introducing you to all the main characters, but the only one we really care about is Tom Hanks, who sees the poster that was supposedly typed, but is clearly handwritten, to join a Mazes and Monsters game, which JJ, who is our main character, tries to get him to join and then invites him to a party for some celebrity where the celebrity is not even going to be there. At which Tom Hanks goes and brings a bottle of wine and meets the rest of the main characters and says he's level 9 in Mazes and Monsters. At which point everyone says that's great and he agrees to play with them for one game. Though he promised his parents he wouldn't play anymore. Because that's how he got kicked out of his old school. This happens in college. Though all these people are like in their 50s. No, they're like in their 20s. Though JJ is supposed to be 16. So they play, and they have a good time. And then Tom Hanks begins a love affair with Kate, which drives JJ into suicidal mode, so he goes into the caverns. At which point he has the brilliant idea, after his character dies in Mazes and Monsters, to bring Mazes and Monsters to the cavern. And everyone agrees, though these caverns are abandoned and dangerous. At which Tom Hanks almost goes crazy in the cavern, seeing a monster and then saying he killed it with his sword, and then staying in character afterwards, at which point he is visited by some sort of god that his cleric worships, his cleric Pardue worships, who says he's got up a level and he will soon join him at the Great Hall once he has proven himself worthy. Now, the Great Hall is a reference to his brother Hall, who ran away to New York, and actually one of Tom Hanks's better acting moments when he's telling Kate about that. Now, Tom Hanks then starts to become Pardue, his character, more, including breaking up with Kate because he can't touch her because he has to be chaste, and blessing people and dressing up as Pardue. Kate, though, hooks up with Stan, and JJ continues to act like a giant fucking nerd. Tom Hanks then goes missing, and they all wonder where he is and tell the police he's missing, that he might have went missing in the caverns. The police say they haven't found him, but he's probably dead. But luckily, the rest of the gang who was playing Mazes and Monsters in the cavern empty all their shit out of caverns. But then Tom Hanks is in New York and stabs a guy and then calls Kate Collect and says, "I stabbed a guy." At which Kate tells him to go to JJ's place in New York because Tom Hanks has no idea what's going on because he was Pardue when he stabbed the guy. Now, the gang heads to New York, but Tom Hanks, seeing a guy who kind of looks like the guy he stabbed, freaks out and heads underneath the subway into the tunnels and sees a maze and goes back into Pardue mode, and then runs into a homeless guy who tells him where the two towers are, which will lead him to the Great Hall, referencing the Twin Towers. And finally, the gang figures out the two towers that Tom Hanks drew a map of are the Twin Towers when they're in New York at JJ's place, and head there too for our final showdown when Pardue is about to jump off the roof of the Twin Towers and cast flight, which he will obviously fall and die, which is what the ending should have been, which would have been cool, because the gang trying to explain why the hell they're on the roof of the Twin Towers and their friend is dead at the bottom would have been funny as hell. But JJ says he is the maze master, and Pardue doesn't have enough points to do that in the game. And then Tom Hanks comes to his senses and goes game, and realizes he's not Pardue, and they take him home, and we go to 3 months later, where he is now Pardue permanently. And they go to quest in the woods for one last time, and then his friends abandon him forever. Now, this was a Canadian made-for-TV movie, and it sucks ass. Even the music sucks. There was nothing good about this movie, except if you want to watch a young Tom Hanks sometimes be brilliant and sometimes be horrible. The rest of the main cast is pretty good, but Tom Hanks sometimes shows brilliance, and sometimes he is just absolutely wretched. And he has the most acting, the role that takes the most acting. But this movie is horrible. I don't recommend anyone watching it. I don't know why anyone watched this and thought D&D was evil. They should have watched this and said, this movie is laughably bad. It's on Peacock. It's on Tubi. If you watch it on Tubi, they sometimes show you an Aldi's commercial. Every single commercial break that makes you want to burn down at Aldi's. Join me next week. I don't know what we're talking about on the rest of the show, and I don't know what movie we're doing.